Brexit. It's not what Europe would have ordered from a menu, but now that negotiations are on the table, it's hilarious! And that's not even including what they think of you in Germany. Wow, is it time for a Brexit update? It feels like so long ago Boris Johnson said it won't end in a Mad Max-style dystopia. And hey, Boris does have a point. It will clearly be more Children of Men style. Boris Johnson, who denied that Britain will have to keep paying into the EU after Brexit, calling it BBC claptrap. Blah, unless you mean the payments to the Brexit bill until the year 2064. Blah, blah. All of this is why I predict Brexit will find a way to never really happen. For example, we are committed to making this work, says the woman who was never really committed to making this work. But now the UK seems to have negotiated the upper hand after gaining European support for getting tough on Russia. They did such a bang-up job negotiating with Russia directly. And now Theresa May calls for European unity. While the opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn calls for the BBC to stop photoshopping him into Russian hats. Again, Britain, this is how the rest of Europe sees you. What Britain needs now is some national pride, which is why someone designed these Brexit commemorative stamps. But one thing Britain can be proud of is Cambridge Analytica. Of course, they're largely responsible for getting Trump elected by stealing Facebook data and eroding democracy while polluting the environment, probably. Or according to this tweet, Zuckerberg became a billionaire by selling my data and all I got was this lousy president. But of course, Cambridge Analytica also helped in Britain, winning the Brexit vote. They used psychographics because they know psychos like graphics. And they again broke the law by hiring foreigners to influence the British election, like this Canadian, Chris Wylie, who was caught red-haired. And they were breaking the law on spending limits according to a whistleblower who was dismissed as merely a jealous lover, making this the first time a Downing Street official statement has been used to out someone. Or making this whole thing like a George Orwell novel where Big Brother is watching you, P.S. Winston Smith is gay. And speaking of red hair, there's the question of Brexit and the Irish border. The only way around reintroducing border walls is to keep Northern Ireland in the customs union, possibly breaking up the UK, but luckily Theresa May has another solution. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage staged an anti-EU publicity stunt in a desperate bid to be taken seriously by flinging fish, which for most people only conjures up the image of this Muppet. If Farage really cared about EU fishing rules, he might have shown up to vote on them, which is why MEPs are now voting to revoke Farage's pension. But that's not as bad as what they're doing in the British Parliament. Meanwhile, British Marmite will disappear as Unilever leaves the UK, and Brexit voters are outraged, like Terry Robinson, who was shocked to find Yorkshire tea isn't even made in Yorkshire. Won't be buying from you again. To which Yorkshire Tea replied, don't worry, we grow it in our massive hydroponic tea plantation 2 miles beneath Dewsbury. But at least the Brits get to keep their blue passports, which will now be made in France. Hence the comments, bloody foreigners staying over there and taking all our jobs. Or, roses are red, passports are blue, a message from France, merci beaucoup. And apparently France has already offered a prototype British passport. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelt of elderberries. And so, as the UK unmoors from Europe and sails off into the sunset, we say so long and thanks for all the fish. News theme. It's a news theme. Ticker tape, remember ticker tape, it never stopped. It was ticker tape because the news, it never stops. Ticker tape, remember ticker tape, it never stopped. It was ticker tape because the news, it never stops. News.